So this was back in 2012. Scott Hollister and Glenn Green, they produced a really remarkable workflow, which just got me extraordinarily excited about this field. What they did was they were working with patients, in this case, a baby who had a tracheal problem, and the trachea would collapse frequently. This is a life-threatening illness, of course, and Scott Hollister and his team came up with a strategy to build a bioresorbable tracheal stent that would fit in, hold the airway open, and then slowly get absorbed into the tissue. This was incredibly exciting. I had nothing to do with this work, right? But I was in the building at the time. So this is the Carl Gerstacker building on the University of Michigan campus. And the feeling that you got was just so exciting that this was a possibility, right? This is something that you could do. Um, and for me, this was touted as the first time that 3D printing had saved a life. I got very, very enthusiastic about it. And just like with all technologies that have come through my lab, I went through various cycles of believing and disbelieving in this technology. So this is the Gartner hype cycle. I'm sure you're all aware of it. For me, this is my personal view of 3D printing over the last little while. For me, this finding, being in the building at the time that Dr. Hollister was doing this work, that was the technology trigger. Everyone got really, really excited about it. And then we started to hit this trough of disillusionment, right? Uh, I feel as though we're currently in this stage where we're slowly figuring out what this is good for and what we can use it for, and then ideally we'd eventually get to, plateaus of productivity afterwards. So when we first saw this happening, we said, okay, what else can we use 3D printing for? We tried a number of different things, and we got disillusioned fairly quickly, right? So my current, I tried to encapsulate those difficulties as best as I could. First is there are limited, by definition, if you 3D print something, you have to limit your materials, right? The material has to be compatible with the whole process of 3D printing, and that limits the number of the things that you can use. This is particularly important for biological applications. You've heard a lot about the biological compatibility of resins that are coming out. Hemdeep, I'm super excited to try the new CytoClear resin. Like 90% is way better than we've seen before. But for many of the applications in my lab, 90% is just not enough. Right? When you start with a stem cell and you grow it up to an organoid, the cell might survive, but it just doesn't behave the way that it's supposed to or that we expect it to. So cytocompatibility is really a touchy subject for many people, and we found it to be particularly painful when trying to work with the limited range of materials that are available for 3D printing. I'll also say that the resolutions that we got from 3D printing, they don't compare to the tools I've already used, right? So I've learned I grew up in the clean room. I know how to make devices that go down to 5 microns, 1 micron resolution. The 3D printed approaches that are generally available to us don't really compare to that kind of resolution. So for me, I had to make a big switch in terms of the design practices that I use to try and avoid these sort of situations where I need really high resolution prints. Uh, I think another key issue is that there's limited availability of the infrastructure, but more importantly, limited availability of maintenance capabilities and skills to keep these machines going. Right now this feels like a problem that is getting more and more tractable, right? Like where the instruments are becoming cheaper and cheaper, more and more of expertise is becoming available. But we're also interested in making devices in really resource limited regions of the world. And if you want to make devices where they need to be, you need an entire infrastructure of people to have that happen. And so this was one of those big concerns for us. But honestly, with the rate of technology development and the rate that things are changing, I'm hoping that this will be a thing of the past soon.